I'm the volunteer director of Concerts in the Barn, and thank you all for making the gargantuan effort to get here today. I understand that there was an accident, and we have the occasional brush fire, and then, of course, the normal construction. So I'm glad that you had the tenacity to make it to our rural, our rural farm today. For those of you who are here for the first time, and can I see a show of hands of anybody who's here for the first time? All right, a few people. This week we have the pleasure of having the Kaimerata concerts come to us. These Kaimerata concerts were started by two musicians, Kai and Catherine, who live in Barcelona, Spain, most of the year. And it was their idea that they would just concentrate on one composer per year to put on in a festival setting, and to acquaint an audience about that composer's music and what drove him or her to write that way, the complexities of it, the challenges that they face as musicians in performing it, and just in general to give everybody a better understanding of what makes that composer tick. This year it's Robert Schumann, and if you're familiar with him, he was a highly talented and very complex character. He was married to Clara Schumann, who was a composer and performer in her own right, but perhaps not so well recognized in the 19th century as she is today. Robert suffered from various mental challenges. I'm not sure what the medical diagnosis, but Kai will tell you. But this in some ways hindered his composing, one might say. In other ways, it enhanced it. But I'm going to leave it to the pros to explain that all to you. I know that you are in for a treat. I talked with somebody who attended the concerts yesterday, and she said that the musicians were absolutely, what did she say, exhilarating, and she called Kai's talk charismatic. So, with those compliments ringing in their ears, I'm now going to introduce them to you.
The pressure is on. How can I show my charisma? I don't know. We're really happy to be here. Sorry for the wait. We're also anxious to play, so I should actually talk less and get to the music soon. And Lee said so many interesting things that I was going to say about Schumann. She stole my speech. Now, probably a lot of you know the story of Clara and Robert. Do you? So Robert, as a young man, was going to study law, and then he realized that his whole life was a struggle between, as he put it, prose and poetry. And so he decided in the end he really would like to study music. He had his mother's blessing, and he went to see Dr. Wieck, a great pianist that, and we as teachers think, how could he say such a thing? Promised him that he would be one of the greatest, if not the greatest pianist in Europe. So he practiced and went there, and also got to know Dr. Wieck's daughter, who was 14 at the time, or 13 even, beautiful, very talented pianist. So I already have doubts about what kind of teacher this was, because if a teacher ever tells you this, there's something wrong. Maybe at the time, it's certain that Schumann was very talented, but to give someone hopes like that is crazy. Anyway, Schumann practiced and ended up injuring his hand and couldn't. And there's a lot of theories about it, that he had a mechanism to actually enforce the third finger up and down, and this apparently caused, and others say that no, he already as a younger man had some kind of problem with his muscles of the left or right hand, I can't remember. But whatever it was, he had to abandon that idea. But he didn't abandon the idea of this charming daughter. And so she was 14, 15, 16. Schumann was studying with Wieck and then couldn't study anymore, but and essentially dedicated himself to composing. and was very much a big brother to Clara. And Clara very much in love with this big brother. And so things started to happen, but the Dr. Wieck, the teacher, was very much against. And very much against. Yet this love was growing and growing and very sincere, to the point that he prohibited any contact between the two. So as she became older, 17, 18, and was ready in those days to marry, and Schumann, who was, I think, 6 or 7 years older, 8, I can't remember, so in 24, 25, 26, was really ready for marriage, tried his darndest, tried to be as nice as possible to the father, and the father refused year after year, and even prohibited them any contact for a whole year, because he was sure that it had nothing to do with love. The father didn't succeed, and the two young ones, their love did come through. They had to actually take the father to court to allow, because you needed the father's permission to get married, and they weren't getting it, and finally they went to court with proof of their love and their et cetera, and won. And so happily ever after, the Clara and Robert were a wonderful couple with highs and lows, because Clara was extremely well known, one of the best known pianists of her generation in 19th century Europe, and almost overshadowed Robert in certain ways. And there was a lot of play between Robert wanting her to be the proper wife at home, yet not wanting her to stop her career. She had 8 children and still continued the career. He was obviously still wanting to have these children, and then there's the whole story with Brahms that you can read. When we do a Brahms year, we'll tell you about that. So it was a very special relationship, and a very, very emotional, very touching, because there's a lot of letters and a very special diary that they wrote, one to each other, that they'd have the same diary, and one would write for a week, and the other would write for a week. And this is published, you can find it, and it's so beautiful, because there's such sensitivity, such emotional beauty between the two. I remember there's one point where she says, "I'm blessed with the greatest thing in life, and that's having a good husband." Oh. I wonder if my wife says that. Or do I deserve it? I guess that's the and such good support, such warm, how he admires her playing, how she really wants to dedicate her life to making it possible for him to compose. So this constant between two creative artists, a constant struggle, but really beautiful. So most of his works are about Clara, are about his wife. And this is a later work. So this is what Lee was referring to. Some people called it bipolarity. Some people say that he was poisoned by the mercury that he was taking for his depressions. Whatever it was, he did end up in an asylum. There was a suicide attempt. He threw himself into the river and so on. And then he died in an asylum without any contact. He wasn't allowed to even see Clara. It was a very sad end. But we don't know about the end when we're playing this music. He didn't know. This is a bit of a later trio. It'll contrast with what you'll hear in the second half. And it's D minor. So a minor key is brooding. It's sad, and the first movement is a perfect example of this turmoil that he has right from the beginning. It's dark, and there's this piano constant movement, and there's not a clear rhythm. It's really beautiful. No, it's really emotional, and he gets lost in this. So I reassured some people yesterday that if you get lost a little bit in the themes, well, he did also. So don't feel like you're in poor company. On the contrary, it's really, his large forms are difficult to follow because he is such a creative man that he can't help himself putting new little themes in there. And so you wonder, well, where this came from? And it's supposed to have a link, and is it not? Is it? And that's what his developments are like that. He all of a sudden introduces new ideas, new themes, and there's one very special one that is this eerie, maybe looking into the future of what it lies ahead. This theme that Beth played for me yesterday that is very close to the bridge, and he writes ponticello, so it's a very special effect, and it comes from nowhere. This is what it sounds like. You can imagine what message it might have. It's the great thing about music is that the words don't describe. You can just imagine image. There's also a beautiful theme also in this development that is not in the exposition, which for me is so clear. If I were to put words to this, Clara, Clara, ich liebe dich. No, I love you. It's just, it seems so clear. No, it's just this sigh. No, and he repeats it and repeats it. So much of this beautiful, sensitive composing. Second movement, luckily, is a good contrast, fun, uplifting. Beth and I going up scales, Catherine in contrary direction, and we alternate with a contrasted trio of just very simple rising line, going down, rising, going down, back to the repetition of the scherzo, the fun. Then this beautiful third movement, which is really a lament, and really you see the mature man composing here. The mature of 38, but when you only live 49, you're, I guess, in the last part of your life. No? It starts with this violin. It's not a theme you could easily sing. On the contrary, it just is heart-wrenching and very sparse. The violin starts with the piano, minimal accompaniment. The cello takes over in beautiful singing way. Then there's a bit of a relief in the middle section and leads back to this lament. And then, luckily, the last movement in D major, which is glorious, which is at least a release of the brooding of the darkness of let's say, especially the first movement and the third movement. And it's in what we call rondo form. So you can talk in the next cocktail party about the rondo form. A, B, A, C, A, B, A. So this A section comes back often, which is the nice thing about classical music is when there's a really good theme, you get to hear it often. And then the B section, which is a development of this, comes also after. And in the middle, there's a whole different one. So it's really a cyclical thing. A, B, A, C, and then A, B, A, and then it finishes. Got it? I'm not sure that was very charismatic. Sorry. just quickly, I know we started late today, so time is, I don't know, do people have to run? No. So now is intermission. But yesterday we did an exercise, and I don't know if I should repeat it. There was a singing exercise. So those who were yesterday, should I repeat it? Yes. Okay. So the singing exercise was actually, because the whole idea of the Kaimerata is of choosing one composer is not only actually for the audience to appreciate more the language of one composer, but also for us. And why am I saying this? Singing. Well, anyway, singing. Singing is so important as for us as musicians. We often tell our students, sing this phrase. Try singing it. How would you sing it? And because singing is the most natural thing, maybe also one of the most difficult because there's no instrument. It's all your body. But we all try to emulate a voice. And so, what I was saying about why I choose the same program, the same composer, because I want people to know more. And because I believe so firmly that the more you know, the more you love. As simple as that. And that's so true with things of quality, of great classical music. So there is a melody in this third movement of the second half that I want you to all learn and practice during the intermission. And it goes like this. I gave a whole speech yesterday about intervals, but I'll make it short. All the intervals, in other words, the space between the notes have different meanings. And some of the most difficult to sing are the larger intervals, like your own anthem. How's it go? Exactly, you know it, right? And then you have to go up high, and it's sung so out of tune. So these intervals, these spaces that are bigger and bigger, can be a lot, even very, very expressive. And it allows for singers to do glissandos. So you can imagine in this theme in the third movement, which goes... This is what you're going to learn to sing. But one could imagine with poor taste. I would call it poor taste. And you hear voices do it, and of course it's beautiful. If we do it, it's slurpy, and you have to really choose where you do glissandos. But anyway, so this is what we're going to learn to sing. Everyone can sing this note? The next one? Big interval. Same thing. Same thing. And get ready for the glissando. And going down. So, why do I want you to sing this? Because I want you to know it before we get there. No? Can you sing it on your own? Ready? I don't see many voices. Mouths open. Come on. So, it's nice, isn't it? No, it's even nicer if you learn how to sing it. So it is your project for intermission, and you have to practice those intervals. And when you do it, you can lift your arm, you can go on your toes, and it's so important. And so when we get to this third movement in the second half, you'll all recognize it, and it'll even be more beautiful, I promise.
Okay, there's one thing I forgot to say when I was first up here, and I will be brief. And that is, I want you to know that I mentioned what our budget was, which was about $100,000 a year. The bulk of our money goes to pay the artists, who need to be paid. We are an all-volunteer staff. I'm the director. I volunteer all my time. Our bookkeeper is all volunteer. We have tremendous volunteers who come out during the concert season and off the concert season to help out in myriad ways. And that is how we're able to keep our budget at a reasonable rate and keep our largest budget item that goes to the artist itself. So when you write a check or you contribute to Concerts in the Barn, you are supporting the artist. And I just wanted you to know that. Okay. Enjoy the second half. Knowing Kai, he will probably want to say something.
First is to express my disappointment that I didn't hear anyone practicing the melody. You thought about it. You do remember it, don't you? Pretty good, pretty good. Second thing, good thing that the monies go to the artist because I'm saving for my Ferrari. So a few words about this wonderful piano quartet, which is much less dark and broody, was written 5 years earlier during a summer in which Schumann was extremely prolific, had composed the famous piano quintet, the 3-string quartets, cello piece, and this piano quartet, which has the famous third movement, which you all know by memory now. And famous, and not to make fun of, because it's just such a beautiful melody. And one of the things that makes it so special, it's great melody that repeats with all the instruments except the piano, oddly enough, and piano was really Schumann's instrument. But it's not in the piano part. The cello gets it at the beginning, then the violin, the viola gets it, then we all get it again, almost all. What's so special, though, and great about a composer is how he changes the texture every time. So it's like saying a sentence like, "Why don't you listen to me?" And then you say it, "Why don't you listen to me?" And you say, "Why don't you listen to me?" Or "Why don't you listen to me?" And so it's the same words, basically, but with a different context, because it's the second time or the third, with a different texture, some very sparse and some counter melody, and some of them, when it gets even more beautiful, there's the same melody but with a little intervention of another instrument that answers just in little short spurts. It's really, really gorgeous movement. The first movement is quite dense, short, very different from the first movement of the trio that you heard, which is broad and these themes which are not clear. This starts with a brief introduction and then just very nice themes. E flat, that's another of the lessons I give, is about the keys, and I won't go too far in it, but E flat for Beethoven, for Mozart, was a noble key, like the Emperor Concerto, like the Eroica Symphony. These were all in E flat major, and this is E flat, like the quintet. So there's a lot of nobility, of beauty in this sense of comfort. It's not tortured. One doesn't see Schumann in his delirious bipolar state here. So first movement goes by. Second movement, a contrast, this little goblins that the cello and the piano start, or the little mice or whatever they are, and Dan and I continue just this very typical of actually romantic. Mendelssohn started these kind of things like Midsummer Night's Dream, or Liszt was great with these little fast movements of always contrasted by his trios, which are completely different and are really one of his best, let's say, the strongest points of his compositions are the miniatures. So he has a flash of something, and then a flash of something completely different, very special. Then the flash comes back of the first something, and then something again contrasting. So it's really Schumann at his best. The third movement I talked about, and the fourth movement, virtuoso, fast, also with some glorious themes that just are very uplifting, and finishes with an amazing fugue. And a fugue is when we all say the same thing at different times, but in a canon. We could practice this also. Would divide in groups, and it's really interesting because everyone has the same thing to say, but it accumulates. So one has to say it a little bit louder. One has to scream it through in order for it to be heard. And then there's the deep range, and then the whole sentence becomes shortened because someone interrupts sooner, and then starts to vary, and so it builds. It's really amazing, and for this has this fugue at the end of the fourth movement, and so also you'll be ready for it when you listen to the quintet, because the whole idea of Kaimerata is that you go home and say, well, I didn't know all this about Schumann, and you pull out your Schumann CDs and you have a new look on it. So this is the piano quartet, written when he was 32, I believe.